Hello everybody, welcome back to today's video. Welcome back to the channel. Hope everybody is doing well and they're having a good day. Um, Today I'm going to be going over what I consider and what I think is perhaps going to be the most interesting and competitive governor's election of the 2026 midterms later this year. And what do I think that is? I think that is Michigan. So today's video I will be explaining why I think Michigan will be a very, very, very interesting governor's election. In fact, one that we haven't seen in the country in a while, and especially in Michigan, probably since beginning of modern history. I'm kind of excited to see how it will turn out. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, so let's start off by highlighting the competitive counties that will be part of the gubernatorial election. This is kind of it right here. And I'm actually going to make Wayne County competitive, and you'll see why. Let's get this out of the way right here. So, why do I think this race is going to be competitive? Well, for the first time in a while, you have a three-way race. You have Mike Duggan, who is the popular mayor of Detroit, which is in Wayne County. He's very popular, and he seems to be getting a lot of vote, more than the typical libertarian or third party candidate would get. He's garnering a lot of votes, and he's making this a three-way race, no doubt about that. And then the Republican and Democrat candidates supposedly are to be determined, but a lot of us can probably guess who the nominees are going to be. You have a few no-names on the Democrat side. But what you really have is Jocelyn Benson, who is the Secretary of State, who actually won her election in her right, which we will talk about that in a minute. She was the highest voted for percentage-wise Democrat candidate in 2022. She won by a lot. After a state that Joe Biden probably won only around 2 points, you saw her win closer to 15. Only 2 years later in 2022. Democrats were not supposed to be favored that much, especially in Michigan. She did pretty well for a Democrat, I'll say. So we have that, and then we also have John James, the Republican. We're mostly guessing that he will be the Republican nominee. He seems to be the farthest ahead in the primary. I could show you. There's a lot of people running, so it'll be a competitive primary, but I don't think that'll have much to do specifically with this race. Then he is the representative for the 10th Congressional District, which, if you didn't know, it's Macomb County, a little bit of Oakland County, so this section of the state. And I think this is a very important part of the state. This is probably, if you're running for statewide office, it's important to be around here because Democrats want to get a lot of votes out of the Detroit area a lot of the times when they're winning statewide, and the suburbs as well. Macomb County, a lot of working class suburban voters. You want to be able to win them when both parties want to win Michigan. Donald Trump did pretty well here when he won, and you're able to have John James pretty much match his margins in the district. He didn't really underperform that much. He kind of just matched it. He won it by about 6 points, which is a pretty strong showing in Michigan's 10th Congressional District. You see, you still have a little bit of Oakland County, but mainly the lower, more denser part of Macomb. It's important because John James, we'll talk about the strengths of both candidates. But I would say the strengths is that he's from this part of the state. It's important, you want to be from that part. You saw he won this area pretty well. Could have that just been coattails from Donald Trump? Yeah, but he was able to win this district in 2022. Very narrowly. But it was more competitive at the time because you saw Democrats like Jocelyn Benson win Macomb County by a lot. She was a strong candidate. So we'll talk about her strengths. She was able to overperform Gretchen Whitmer, the governor, and Dana Nessel, the Democrat Attorney General at the time. So she's able to overperform the governor and the Attorney General. They both won by a lot in 2022 as Democrats, but Jocelyn Benson was the most electable out of all. She did pretty well. A lot of Trump counties she won by likely at a safe margins, lean margins. She definitely won a few red counties, I'll say. So she seems to have some bipartisan appeal. She did go against Christina Caramo. She was not a strong candidate. Very weak. I would say she was the weakest out of the three Republican candidates. She said some controversial things. I mean, she wasn't scandal plagued, but she had problems fundraising. She wasn't. She kind of drove the Michigan Republican Party into the ground. She was involved with a few of that. Um, but regardless, she was. Jocelyn Benson's a good candidate, statewide, proven winner. So you have those two candidates. However, John James did run two elections of his own. We'll use the later one of 2020. So we talked about Jocelyn Benson being a strong candidate. We got on the backgrounds of both. Now let's explain why John James is a decent candidate. I mean, he's not amazing. I mean, he's not like Glenn Youngkin type of Republican, like super good candidate. He's decent, right? He's not a super big, huge underperformer. He's made some races unnecessarily close. You had in 2020 Gary Peters, the Democrat incumbent. He only won because Joe Biden performed reasonably well here. He won Michigan by around 2 points. That barely carried Gary Peters over the finish line. He should have won probably around 5 points. He only won by like a point and a half. It was very narrow because you had John James narrow it. You had a lot of Trump counties that John James was able to win. Trump counties that Trump won in 2016, but Biden was able to win in 2020. You had Biden won counties that John James was able to win, like places like Leelanau, Kent County. That's probably the biggest one, Muskegon. And he did decent in Macomb County. But that's basically how it worked. If he was able to get the good rural margins that Republicans need. However, he did fall short because Gary Peters was able to get the numbers out in Wayne County, Detroit. However, what I'm thinking is that if the Democratic nominee, Jocelyn Benson, she might not be able to get the amount of numbers that, you might need to get. At least, 67%. Around that is what the baseline is that Democrats need to be able to win statewide in Michigan. And there's not really any other major cities. It's all the southeast part of the state that Democrats need to win in order to win statewide, which they have been proven successful to do at times. However, that vote could really be taken away if you have Mike Duggan, because again, he is the mayor of Detroit, which is the huge Democrat voting base. So what I'm thinking, and a lot of people are curious about, is will Democrats be able to keep their vote base alive and not get taken away by Mike Duggan? Because he still leans to the left, right? He's an independent, but he used to be a registered Democrat to win in Detroit. Polling has reflected that when John James is the nominee, he's actually tied, slightly down, or even slightly winning against the Democrat. These are old, outdated polls, but they're still interesting. You have a lot of undecided. Some of those could go to the Democrat, the Republican, or the Independent. We don't know. So the reason why I bring this race up is because it'll be very interesting to see, will Democrats have enough votes to be able to win? Or because of the third-party candidate, will take votes away from the Democrats, which will leave John James the narrow edge. I'll say a strength that John James had is winning Kent County. I don't know if you know what Kent County is in Michigan, but it's the western part of the state where Grand Rapids is. That was won by Joe Biden by around 5 points, and John James was able to win Kent County narrowly, but he was able to win it, which is pretty good, which means that he does have some crossover support and some strength, and that's not even the part of the state that he's from. So if you have a Republican candidate having strengths in the western part of the state and the eastern part of the state, it is very possible that he'll be able to keep his base together while not losing too much. He'll lose some, but will not losing a ton. And meanwhile, the Democrats' vote will get taken away to the independent Mike Duggan, which can leave this race extremely competitive. Without the third party, I would say this would be a lean Democrat race. However, with the independent running, it's going to be extremely competitive, and it's going to be really hard to say how the election goes. I'm rating this currently as tilt Republican. It's going to be anybody's race. But if I were to fill up the county map, it would probably look something like this. I don't think John James would be able to win Leelanau. I think it's a little bit too blue now. However, he will be able to narrowly win some of these toss-up areas. Eaton by a lead margin. Bay County by a likely margin. Macomb, this will be very interesting. This is where he's from. I would say likely Republican. Muskegon County, lean Republican. This is going to be interesting. You know, some of the Republican margins could go down to likely in some of these rural red counties. You never know. They could always change because Mike Duggan could always take away votes. So we'll really have to see what happens. And then you have Kent County, very close. It's hard to say who would win it. John James has won Kent County. I'll just, as a coin flip, I'll leave it as tilt Democratic, just because it's going to be a close race. And the reason why I have Wayne County not colored in is because, yeah, that's where Detroit is from. I think the margin will still be safe, but it really could go likely. Who knows? Because this race is a true wild card, so is the other surrounding Democrat areas. You know, Democrat votes, maybe even a little bit of Republican votes could be taken away. So that's why I have this race as very competitive. We'll really have to see what happens, but as the answer to the video, this is what I do view to be the most competitive election for the gubernatorial level in 2026. So something to watch this year is this election. We'll have more content coming out about it, especially some other governor's elections. We'll be putting out some videos about some other states pretty soon. But I hope you guys subscribe to the channel. Please like and hit the notification bell. And come back sometime soon. I'll see you in the next video.